Hey guys, I wanted to holler at y'all for a minute about Barefoot Minimalist Footwear and running and what building up that foot and lower calf strength looks like. So, I'm not a physical therapist or a medical doctor or anything like that, but I did have flat feet my entire life as a child and then had acute chronic compartmental syndrome, basically a crush injury where the fascia of your muscle gets stuck and it almost becomes like a negative vacuum space and everything starts to squeeze in. So you're almost like self-amputating from the inside, right? So the fascia, little sacs that surround the muscles, it builds up pressure and it just crushes on those muscles, the nerves, anything. And that was coming out of high school into, early adulthood, post-high school. And when I had that, in addition to my flat foot, by the time I had my surgeries, if I walked a mile, just walked a mile, like no physical effort, just walked a mile, I would go numb below the knee. And I don't mean like pins and needles or parasynesthesia, whatever the technical term for that is. But I mean like grab a metal baseball bat and smash myself in the shins and be like, neat. Numb, like actually no feeling, because it would just, the muscles getting engorged along with the fascia not expanding would just build up so much pressure. And then I had those surgeries and I had to relearn how to walk. And I had to completely rebuild the muscular strength to do that, literally from the toes up. And I was very fortunate to have a physical therapist who herself had that in her calves and feet, but also in her hands and forearms. And so she was very, very educated on this topic. And, she was a former high-level gymnast and all kinds of great things. It also fixed my flat feet by this barefoot style training. And it's a lot more than just buying a new type of shoe. Right? We live in this America consumerist society, and there's no just one product that can do it for you. Please excuse the dog. I hope it doesn't continue. It's a thought process, right? It has to be a lifestyle change, something new. So, what I had to do is we literally start with all kinds of drills that I'll make a video on later. Literally just laying with your feet on the ground and using your toes to pull, like lay a towel out and to pull it all the way to you. Maybe start putting weights on it so you're learning to like use your toes individually. Pin and penny drills. You literally put a penny underneath the pad, right, the ball of your foot, and put a pin or a pencil, not sharp, underneath your foot. And you practice learning to control the muscles that control the arch in your foot, because they are muscles. Like it's a muscle that controls the arch of your foot. And so when people are flat-footed, it's generally like 80% of the time that you just got an injury and that muscle got too weak, and through ignorance and not knowing any better, it never got retrained up enough to support your weight. And you can see that in my own feet. If you were to literally look at them, and when I learn more video editing skills, we'll revisit this topic and like show you, and I'll splice all this kind of stuff in there. But you can literally see that my toes curve to the right. Like if my foot was straight, my toes kind of go to the right a little bit from years of being flat-footed. And there is something to say that, your bones and joints can eventually get fused like that. But it takes a very long time. We're talking many, many years, like decade or two. So you can, if it hasn't literally fused and just been stuck like that for forever, you can retrain those muscles and get out of being flat-footed like I did. Now, I might always have a low arch, lower comparatively to other people or maybe the average, but it's not unusable. It's not a limiter. It's just I have a lower arch than other people. There's Olympic, or maybe not Olympic, but world-winning marathon and ultra-marathon runners whose arches practically completely collapse and smack pavement when they're doing their extremely long-distance runs. So there is something to be said for some people have high arches and some people have low arches, and that doesn't really necessarily mean anything. Like, you can be fine with either, right? Because every individual body is an individual body. But if they don't have the strength, right, if they have a low arch because that muscle's collapsed because it's so weak it can't support their body and it can't do the things a foot's supposed to do, that's a problem. whether your arch is high or low in particular isn't really the problem. Maybe the why, right? The cause. So you can absolutely train it. You can absolutely not be flat-footed anymore, right? Maybe if you've been flat-footed since you were 10 and now you're 50, it might be out of the cards for you. Again, I don't know. I'm not the doctor. You'd have to go to a trained physical therapist who knows what they're looking for, because many don't. Or I learned because I had to, and I got very lucky. But there's all kinds of drills you would do to begin to learn like that proprioception, that mind-muscle connection. Because I couldn't feel the muscles of my foot and like do different things and do all of these various drills. It took 6+ months sometimes for some of the harder ones for me to be able to even begin to have muscular control and to be able to like consciously change the shape and structure of my foot and the muscles and activate certain muscles and relax other ones, allow certain ones to stretch while others stayed tight. Because I was in flat-footed, I was just in giant motion control, super cushioned shoes to try to make up for the flat-footedness. Because when you're super flat-footed and those muscles go out, right, your knees aren't in alignment correctly anymore, and there are a lot of bad things that can happen. And so the quick fix is to just put you in these super padded motion control shoes that have all this arch support and kind of just try to force your foot into to do the job that it can't do anymore and to put it in the proper alignment. And that might be a poor explanation, right? I'm not like the Zero Shoes CEO or a bunch of super educated people that are out there on this topic. But I've lived it, and it took me 6 months to relearn how to walk so that I could join the army. But then I've maintained that strength, and sometimes I've relaxed on my training and re-lost some of it, and had to regain it time and time again due to laziness or injury or whatever. But I definitely have it now, and don't ever plan on losing it. Now that we've talked about that, shoes themselves, right? It is a problem. Now, these mega big padded, soft, motion control, thick heels, huge toe to heel drop where your heel's 10 millimeters above your toes in most every commercial brand shoe out there, particularly in America, is not good. I mean, if you literally take your shoe off, at least if you're under the age of 20 probably, and you haven't been in those shoes for 50, 60 years, the human foot isn't shaped like a shoe is. It's just not. The toes are literally supposed to be the widest part of your foot. You look at your 4-year-old, that's how it is. You look at your 10-year-old, that's how it is. You look at your 15-year-old, as long as you haven't had them in super constrictive shoes, including inside the house since they were 3, and their toes are the widest part of their body, or of their foot, not their body, but like literally from the side of their big toe to the side of their pinky toe. Now, obviously, there's some individual variance there, of course. Your mileage may vary. But the foot is designed to work, right? We are made this way for a reason. It's designed to work a very specific way. And shoe companies are not necessarily the same as the human foot. We know all about Mad Men and, people doing cigarette selling campaigns and, the Mad Men shows and all of that. Why do we think that it just has stopped now? The propaganda is even more so now than it ever was before. Not less. Certainly not less. So, I really do promote this like super barefoot minimalist footwear and training. Again, a lot of it's flexibility, mobility, and mind-muscle connection with muscles we've never really talked about or considered in a Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilding encyclopedia, or even in NFL football practice or anything. Like it's not really talked about, but it's huge. It's absolutely huge, and I mean it affects. I mean we're human beings. We're Homo sapiens. All of our athletic pursuits start with our connection to the ground. Right? We're on our feet. Every sport starts on your feet. Everything, even swimming, starts on your feet, right? You start it with the most athletic movement of diving in the pool, where you generate force immediately from your feet through the ground to control the rest of your body, right? To dive into the pool and begin your swim. Every athletic sport and pursuit starts. Even pull-ups, right? I got to jump up on the bar. Everything starts with the feet and connected to the ground. Everything. So that's where our force begins to be generated. So if our foot is compromised in basically any way, the whole chain's compromised, right? You're only as strong as your weakest link idea. So I really do promote this barefoot minimalist footwear. However, it is very easy to, in the short term, to get injured pursuing it too much. And by short term, I mean inside of 2 years. Yeah, it's going to take a long time. It's going to be rough. It takes a long time, particularly if you were flat-footed from the time you were 6 to the time that you're 20, and you've had a couple major surgeries on your lower calves and legs and feet, and now you're relearning how to walk as an 18, 19-year-old. It's going to take some time. It's going to take 6 months, a year or two, to build up the calf strength, to build up the ability to feel the different muscles in your foot, right? Gain that mind-muscle connection, that proprioception, right? The ability to feel where you and your body are at in space and time. It's going to take some time. And maybe it starts with walking 5 minutes a day for a couple of weeks after you've graduated from just some of those physical therapy-oriented exercises, of which, again, I'll do a video and show you on. Maybe I've got to do those for 3, 4, 5, 6 months before you're really ready to start going on extended walks of even just a mile or two in, barefoot minimalist footwear. And again, what that is the idea of being barefoot or minimalist footwear is where there's no heel to toe drop. So your toes aren't below your heels like in most footwear. They're even, right? Maybe the sole is however thick it may be, but it's the same thickness the whole way. And then there's also no toe spring. So again, toes, heel, right? In a ton of shoes, they lift up, right? They curve up to try to allow this like gentle rolling motion, since the shoe stops your foot muscles and your lower calf muscles from doing what they're designed to do. It tries to also raise your toes up now, a lot of shoes, to like enforce with your heel raised as well. Heels raised, toes are raised, so when you land, you can't help but be this like rolling motion that is nice for hurt people or people who are really trying to run faster than they're technically probably should be capable of, and to push a little extra speed from a 5-10 mile run, but when you're not ready for it, or you're trying to do whatever you got to do while working an injury, which there is a place for. So this is a very serious topic, particularly if you're a 200 plus pound, 10-year active duty Army drill sergeant who gets 5 hours of sleep a night and yells at trainees all the time. And then you got to dust them, right? You just got to outrun them despite being super jacked up. You've had 6 surgeries or you've broken your spine in 6 spots. You had to relearn how to walk at 18, 19 to even join the Army. And now you still got to dust these young kids that are coming out of college athletics or high school track teams, and you still got to burn them. Just absolutely burn them. And if you don't take care of your feet and learn these things, you won't be able to. All the specific scenario there, Drill Sergeant Foster. I wonder what makes you bring that up. Now, there is a place for more conventional footwear. Again, this is coming from a dude who's been flat-footed, who's had the surgeries, who's done the physical therapy programs, a ton of them, like more than 10, like I'm talking like 3, 4, 5 month long like physical therapy programs. I do like 1 or 2 of them a year for my low back and for my like lower legs and feet. Because I'm just very conscious and I'm looking for an edge, any edge I can get. So I love the super minimalist barefoot style footwear. There's also a place for the super padded stuff. So like my favorite shoes before getting into barefoot minimalist for running were Brooks, right? For us big 200 plus pound, non-victim weight, solid dudes that most of us have to kind of go through a door a bit sideways, you're my boys. We're heavy dudes. Shoes and runners, we ain't who they're thinking of. But we got to be able to run like you're a human. You need to be able to run. And if you're in the Army, you got to be able to run pretty quick. Maybe not to a marathoner standards, but, because you also have to be a lot stronger. We're picking up other 100, 200-pound dudes with kit and carrying them for a quarter mile on a litter, over your shoulders, up a hill, down a mountain, and then you got to run. And then you have to win the fight, right? And then you walk through the woods for 4 hours through the middle of the night to run into some other enemy in a patrol base, and then you got to win the fight. So that we definitely are still endurance athletes, even though we do need some size and strength to us, right? And some athletic, explosive prowess. You got to have it all. Yeah, I love the Army, man. Anyway, so for like Brooks, right, with like the motion control guided rail systems, like their Adrenaline series, are awesome. And they allow you to still work on that running and that training and to relax if you do overdo it on this footwear. Because the Barefoot Minimalist is very easy to overdo it. I've been doing it for years now. Like, I'm still literally at 2 years of dedicated barefoot training. Now, again, the vast majority of my training isn't barefoot because I'm in the Army, right? I'm wearing Army boots, and there are no AR670-1 approved truly minimalist barefoot style boots in the Army. There just aren't. I think the Belleville Mini Mills are the closest, and they have a variety of pros and cons, even those boots. And that's the closest we get currently. And that's quite frankly the majority of my ruck marches, a lot of my runs. But when I can, I really do love the barefoot stuff. But even so, even having all the training and being an over 200 plus pound dude, sometimes even just running 2 miles at a pretty casual pace can hit me really hard in those super specific muscles that don't get touched in normal shoes or boots, but that take a lot of that workload when I'm running in barefoot minimalist shoes. And if there's more PT and more events, and all of a sudden people at work are mad and they want to take us on a couple, 5-6 mile death run to, because the first sergeant wants to prove that he's the man, and you can't fall out because you're an NCO. If you are only to wear those barefoot shoes while you're learning to build up those strength, even for the first couple of years potentially, you're going to get hurt. It is easier to get hurt initially, first year or two of training, as you transition to becoming a completely, barefoot, minimalist style footwear athlete. It is easier to get hurt. There's less padding on rocks. There's a whole bunch of, there's like 18 different new muscles that you're working that you're not used to working at all in more conditionally shodded athletes, aka shodded as in having shoes. So it's good to have both. Again, I really like the Brooks Adrenaline series because it was the guided rail system, and that allowed me to, I did my first half marathon in those, and those were really great. They held up for a really long time. I still have them and wear them, but they're absolutely not for the public. They're just half ripped apart, but really good shoes. So just a few months or days ago, I did only 2 mile run at like a 9-minute pace in some, barefoot minimalist 0 drop shoes. And I am pretty good at that. All right. I've been doing it for a long time, and that got me for whatever reason on a couple of those muscles on my right calf. I can literally put my thumb on it. It hurts right there. And so I still had to do a couple runs for work and things. So I put on my more conditioned, bouncy, motion control shoes. And I almost didn't feel those muscle groups that were hurting at all. It wasn't a limiter, even though I was pretty sore. There's definitely a place for both. There is definitely a place for both. But you should start to transition to that barefoot minimalist more. And the more you're forced into other footwear that doesn't allow that, the more you need to go more minimalist barefoot when that option is available to you, right? There's a saying everybody loves, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. And that's great for young men who've never experienced the big sad yet. But if you're, a stay-at-home mom who's dealing with the mundane all day, every day, you're just someone who's dealt with the sadness and maybe a bit of depression or anything before. If it's worth doing, it's worth underdoing. It's better to brush your teeth for 15 seconds than not at all, right? It's better to have done a 5-minute walk than to have never even got off the couch. It's better to have done 20 push-ups than to have just eaten another bowl of ice cream, right? If it's worth doing, it's worth underdoing. better to do it not good enough than to just quit and not do it at all. And so that's kind of the idea I want to give you with this barefoot minimalist style training, to start building it up. Even if you never become a, fully like barefoot minimalist athlete, because, they don't even have all of the different kinds of shoes that we would need for that to live like that lifestyle completely. And I get that. That's totally fine. I'm not trying to tell you to like sell and get rid of all your other stuff and not to wear cowboy boots ever again or fancy dress shoes that look good. No. We definitely need those. How could a Texan tell you to not have your cowboy boots? And those will never be barefoot minimalist. It just can't happen. And that's okay. They're still awesome. I love me some Ariats. But that's all the more reason why when we can train and rebuild that foot strength and use our feet the way they're designed, we need to. We should. Anyway, there's probably a whole lot more I could say on that. This is really more just trying to get a philosophy, a thought process out to y'all. And to tell you a little bit about my own, I did an ACFT just a couple weeks ago, completely in barefoot minimalist, zero shoes with almost no tread on them either. And scored, like a 587-ish on that test, which isn't a max score by any means, but is pretty darn good for a dude who had to relearn how to walk to be able to join the Army, who has 6 fractures in his lower spine, multiple herniations that I feel all of, even though most people don't. And, I've had like 6 surgeries while being in the Army. By no means the worst, or like, oh, look at me, I'm so special. But, there's still a way to get after it, even if you deal with chronic pain. And sometimes it takes you 15 minutes to get out of your car when you show up to work. You woke up okay that morning, but you got in your car, and when you got out of it, you needed someone to help pull you out of your driver's seat. That was me today. And that's real life, right? That happens. Particularly, if you're carrying people up or down mountains while running from other people in those mountains. But it just makes it all the more important to train it, right? It just means we have to get even smarter so that we can have some sort of capability through the chronic pains. Anyway, it's really important. And I really want to get that out to y'all. We'll talk more about it. I'll splice in some more videos that are a little shorter, a little more quick packed and to the point. Yeah, something like that. All right. I'll stop ranting and being silly and let y'all get back to your day. Y'all have a good one. Love y'all. Goodbye.